Hello, welcome to Business Success Talk. I'm Daniel Ortiz, and today my guest is Dirk Norris, who's the Executive Director of the New Mexico Film Foundation. Dirk, welcome to our program.
Thanks very much for having me.
So Dirk, you're a little bit of a different type of interview because this show is about business and business success. And when most people hear the film industry or film business, they don't think about the business part. They think about red carpets and movie stars and champagne, and that's like 1/10 of 1% of a half of the film industry.
Right.
Isn't it? Of course, a lot of young ladies, women, they want to be movie stars, and we have Kim Kardashians, and we are in a society that worships celebrity.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's actually behind all that is a business. Right?
Yeah, and a lot of hard work.
And a lot of hard. That's why I decided to have you here. So, tell us about the New Mexico Film Foundation, what it is and what it does, and we'll talk about the New Mexico film industry, which is actually pretty huge.
Yeah.
Right.
So in New Mexico, there's kind of two situations regarding film. One is Hollywood coming to New Mexico.
Okay.
And that includes Netflix now buying I-25
Yes.
Albuquerque studios,
Right.
and now NBC Universal moving to Albuquerque
Recent
as well.
news, big news, yes.
So that's a really huge aspect of the film industry in New Mexico. The other aspect is the men and women who live in New Mexico and want to make films themselves. And I was working at the state film office for a year and a half as the outreach programs manager, and realized that the support that used to exist for New Mexico filmmakers under the Richardson administration, those programs were all gone. So there was no support for the men and women who live in New Mexico, primarily the above-the-line folks. That's actors, directors, producers, and screenwriters. Those are the four people that don't get hired when Hollywood comes to New Mexico.
Right.
So I thought that support, some kind of support, needed to exist again for those folks. So I left the film office and started the foundation 6 years ago. So we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and our mission is to help grow the film industry from within the state and support the men and women who live here and want to make films by financial assistance and educational opportunities. So we have some small grants that we offer. We do workshops, we do stage readings, and a number of things that involves not only the filmmakers but the community as well.
That's such an important role that you play, and just full disclosure, you're helping me. I produce this show. I'm also happen to be producing a documentary film, and we're seeking funding for that. And a lot of large foundations and corporations they won't fund individuals or for-profit entities. They will fund a 501c3 nonprofit entity.
Right.
So you also act as a fiscal agent, right? Talk about the foundation.
Right. Yeah, that's one aspect of that we're really proud of.
And just tell her, how does that work? Just briefly.
So we a filmmaker can take advantage of our 501c3. And
basically, it's a partnership, right?
It's a partnership, right? They come under our umbrella. So donations are made to the New Mexico Film Foundation. Tax-deductible donations are made to the New Mexico Film Foundation on your behalf,
right?
And then you get that money.
Right.
And the IRS set this up, fiscal sponsorships, for somebody who would qualify for 501c3 status, but didn't want to go through that whole long process because it's just one project, right?
Right. And it takes a long time, and it costs a lot. About several $1,000s to set it up. We got to have legal. It's got to be set up legally. You have to have minutes, board of directors. I mean, it's
right.
checked into it. So you provide a great role in that.
Yeah, and luckily they did come out with a 1023, which is the nonprofit application, an EZ form. So if you're operating with a budget of $50,000 or less for the next 3 years, you can do this EZ form and get your 501c3 in 6 weeks rather than 18 months.
Right.
So that's really handy. But yeah, right now we have 12 projects under our fiscal sponsorship program.
Wow.
Primarily documentaries. One of our documentaries is called Eternal Harvest, and it's a couple of journalists that are doing a documentary about all the unexploded bombs in Laos.
Wow.
And they've been working on that for quite a while.
Yeah.
So we're proud to be able to assist, that kind of thing, assist you with your film, and kind of getting it off the ground and making some progress with it.
Right. Well, your timing could be better. And doing some research for my documentary, there's websites and there's other organizations out there. And what we're hearing is that this is, I guess, is because of technology. Is that this is the golden age of documentaries, isn't it?
It really is. Documentaries are really popular, and if they're done well, they can do very well. And it's just, some of the stuff you see that Werner Herzog is like the documentary guy, and his films are just fabulous.
Right.
And learning, the stuff you learn through documentaries, it's just incredible, the information they provide.
As a kid growing up, I was always, maybe it was the nerd in me, but I always liked to watch PBS.
Right.
PBS documentaries. Nova, Discovery Channel, National Geographic. And just, especially with animals, I could watch spiders,
Oh, right.
But Frontline is, I think, one of the best. I don't know who produces that, Nova, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But just fascinated. You're right. It's done well. But I think technology has changed now. Everybody's got a smartphone or an iPad, and you can actually literally do a documentary with an iPad.
Absolutely, and the distribution availability is much greater than it used to be, right?
Right.
You used to be the only ways that anybody saw your film was either in your living room or, you get distribution at the theaters.
Right.
But now with YouTube and
Netflix
and
Hulu.
Prime and Hulu, all of those things.
And they need content, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Netflix said they were going to spend $12 billion on content.
Wow.
So yeah, that's a lot of stuff, and it's kind of incredible. Some of the stuff you see on Netflix and Amazon Prime, I'm wondering how did that get on there in the first place? But by and large, it's some really good stuff.
Well, we want to get to that because
Yeah.
we watch TV. They say there's 300 channels and nothing to watch.
Right.
Right. And a lot of those comedies, some of the comedies, I wonder, is like, how does that get produced? But there's a market for it, I guess.
Yeah, and some of the folks that live in New Mexico, there's one woman who is making a comedy, a series called Cranky Village, and it's about a retirement home that falls into the hands of a reluctant owner who wants to get rid of it, but all the quirky people that are living there, and it takes place in New Mexico, and they film it in New Mexico, and it's the writing is just really, really top notch. So I enjoy smart comedy.
I was going to get to that point. So there's two opposite things happening. One is the opportunity or the barriers to entry into the film industry have been lowered.
Right.
But at the same time, you have to have your act together.
Yeah.
You have to produce top quality content. The writing has to be, that's why I think one of the great things about the New Mexico Film Foundation is that you help budding filmmakers get everything in line, because at the end of the day, we'll go back to this, it's about business. It is a business, right? It's a film.
It's a film business, yeah. And that's very true. Unfortunately, a lot of filmmakers, and it's right brain, left brain, right? It's artistic and it's business.
Yes.
And never the two shall come together. We did, last year we held a 2-day seminar on the business of film. And it was about budgeting, it was about accounting, it was about insurance, it was about permits, all that stuff, because filmmakers, and a lot of them coming out of school, they can pick up a camera and make a great film, but nobody taught them the business side of it, and that's so important.
So,
go ahead.
I think I have the unique advantage. I come from the world of finance. I'm a former stockbroker, investment banker first. So I know about business plans, and one of the things I had to do, and I find I'm spending like 80% of my time on the business side, which is fine.
Right.
But I had to get, this was one of the biggest things that helped me. In fact, helped me get a partnership with the Film Foundation is creating the film proposal, which is a business plan for film.
Right.
But you have to have the budget, you have to have the log line. It's not just the right brain creative stuff, and I think that's probably where you're getting at is a lot of people, they go into film, they're right brain, they're artistic types,
Right.
and the business side is probably not their favorite thing to do.
Right.
Right. And I was warned about this. It's, you know, a lot of flaky people in the film industries.
They're creative.
They're creative, yeah. They're creative type, but you know,
Yeah.
in the business, coming as a stockbroker, it's like, you know, okay, how did these people get do anything? Because
Yeah, and you know, that's demonstrated very well with productions that come into New Mexico. I mean, they've got it together.
yes,
Not to say that New Mexico filmmakers don't. It's just that because they don't have the budget to work with, they can't hire that business person to take care of all that side of it. They have to do it themselves.
Right.
And so New Mexico filmmakers often referred to as slash title, right? They're producers slash directors slash, you know, accountant slash, you know, all of that stuff. So it's important for them, as reluctant as they may be, for them to understand it. And, you know, eventually we want to get to the point where we find investors that will invest in New Mexico filmmakers, and really there's no reason why New Mexico can't have a vibrant film industry on its own, just like LA or New York or anywhere else, grown from within the state and not have to depend on Hollywood coming here. And it's great that they come here. They hire a whole lot of people that put a lot of money into the industry, into the economy, certainly. But I think we have to look at, you know, the folks that live here and want to participate in that as well.
well, Mexico is, especially in Santa Fe, it's an art mecca.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so we get all the right brain, you know, I mean, there's graphic artists, there's different types of artists,
Right.
and film is a different type of art. One of the things about Hollywood, we call it Hollywood, but there's other film areas, you know, New York, you know, and so forth. But they took it as a business first. Mm-hmm. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's what you need. At the end of the day, it is a business, and we'll come back to that.
It is, yeah. It's a bottom line business, and if they can save $1 million by filming in one place rather than another, they will do that, and that's where incentives come into play.
Right. And so we're going to take a short minute break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the dollars and the volume and the economic impact that the film industry is having in New Mexico, and the role that the New Mexico Film Foundation is playing that. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back to Business Success Talk. And we're talking with Dirk Norris, the Executive Director of the New Mexico Film Foundation. Welcome back to Business Success Talk. I'm Daniel Ortiz, and my guest today is Dirk Norris, who's the founder of the New Mexico Film Foundation. And when we left off, we were talking about the business side of film.
Yeah.
Which, again, when people think of film, they think of the red carpets and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, it's a very small portion of it. At the end of the day, it's a business. So let's talk about the film industry in New Mexico. What kind of economic impact is the film industry in New Mexico?
Well, you know, it's really huge, and over the last several years, there's, you know, been over $1 billion spent into the economy, $537 million over the last couple of years, and that's one of the reasons that the new governor had decided to raise the cap. We have a cap of $50 million for the last 8 years. So they've increased that cap to $110 million. And
Now,
that's
for our audience, what does that mean?
yeah,
the-
so
the
that's
cap?
the total amount of money that could be paid out in tax rebates in any given year. And under the previous administration, I think the reasoning was if we have a cap, we can budget each year for how much that's going to be, the maximum amount we have to budget for any particular year. If you figure that the incentive is 25% basically, so if you figure we have reached the cap, that means that $400 million have been spent into the economy to get that 100 or that $50 million back in rebates. So that's a huge amount of money. And put on top of that, Netflix coming in and NBC Universal, those are both of them have made a 10-year commitment with a $1 billion spend over those 10 years. And they are considered New Mexico film partners now. So the $100 million that they are spending doesn't count toward the cap. That's kind of exempt money, so that all these other productions go and add to the cap, which is now $110 million. So any production that comes in here, anywhere from 10 to $200 million for a film.
What examples of the things that they goods and services that they buy?
Well, it's everything. It's everything in the economy. It's the hotels, it's car rentals, it's restaurants, it's art, it's the lumber yards. Not to mention 11,000 people that they're hiring. The union has grown from 400 members to over 1,200 members, and the pay that they get is well above kind of the average pay, certainly in Santa Fe and New Mexico. So they're really benefiting, and then there's the economic multiplier, right? A grip gets paid enough that maybe they're looking at a new house. They buy a house, and
grip for our audience is what?
yeah, a grip is kind of like a handyman. They handle all of the equipment and the stands, the C stands, and they carry stuff. And
Yeah.
it's not a glamorous job. It's certainly not red carpet stuff, right?
Well, for every star in a film, there's how many people, support staff that, we're talking about people who building sets, transportation, meals. I've been on a few programs before, and they really eat well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you have caterers, right? You have restaurants.
Yeah. And background work, the extras, that's tough work because you're either standing around until they ask you to come in, or you're sitting on set for a long time.
Right.
And there are hundreds of just background people.
Right.
For every star you see on TV, there's 200 people behind them, right? And they're all drawing a paycheck.
Yeah.
And the film industry is a clean industry too. It's not adding to pollution, so it's a real benefit to have it here.
So it's a $500 million industry, you said, in New Mexico now?
Well, I think a year ago, 2 years ago, there was over $500 million direct spend. That's money directly spent in New Mexico.
And do we know how many people that's employed? I think we saw some stats.
I think it's 16,000.
16,000 directly or indirectly?
16,000 work hours that have from that year.
Okay.
It employs tons of people.
Right.
One example of kind of what you might not think of, several years ago, and I think this was on the Lone Ranger. There was a company that manufactured medical clothing, and it's like leg braces and socks and that sort of thing.
Scrubs.
And the production was looking for a company that could sew leather because they had to make these costumes. So they went to this place, and we can do that, fine.
Right.
So they never thought that they would be involved in the film industry by sewing costumes because they had the equipment, right? So they got a big boost from that. There's fabric stores and thrift stores that get bought out because they're just looking for costumes and particular items.
Right. So why New Mexico? Why are so many films? I mean, Mexico has been, I guess, for westerns. I mean, we're obviously
sure.
a great choice. You know, we've been there's been films in here for decades.
Yeah, long time.
Mostly westerns
Yeah.
because of the terrain, but all of a sudden we seem to have hit a tipping point. I remember, you know, some of the, like, you probably know more than I do, but like Breaking Bad was filmed here, and I was really impressed. I don't know what the title is, but how they got, you know, they would identify a specific street. There was an actual street in Albuquerque, or even
Right.
they mentioned Santa Fe and the Opera, and you know, and so forth. So, why New Mexico though? Why?
Well, as we said, it's a business, right?
Yeah.
And why New Mexico? Because of the incentives. One reason, the incentives.
But other states have incentives too. don't
Other
they?
states have incentives, and
Louisiana,
New Mexico,
I think, was another state.
yeah, Louisiana, Georgia.
Yeah.
At one point, New Mexico was the first to have a film
Is that right?
incentive in the United States. Under the Gary Johnson's administration, a formal, and it was 15% at that time. Every single state in the union followed suit. So at one time, every single state had a film incentive of one kind or another. Now, New Mexico's film incentive has proven to be the best, the way it's modeled. Other states had tried different models and they failed. So it's down to just maybe a handful of states that have viable film incentives. So beyond the film incentives, it's our locations. You know, it's a lot of westerns, a lot of movies based in the Middle East are shot here. About the only thing you can't do is like a shipwreck film.
Well-
We got a lot of beach, no ocean.
But I also found out that I think it's Vancouver in Canada. A lot of films are shot there because the buildings look like New York.
Yeah.
It's very expensive to film in New York.
Right.
Not to mention the logistics. So Vancouver is like in New York
Sure,
for
sure.
film.
Well, yeah, you know, and some of the other states get kind of upset because New Mexico has been used for Los Angeles. It's been used for Wyoming,
Dallas.
Dallas. So yeah, there's the TV series Longmire that was shot in Las Vegas, New Mexico, for a long time, and
Even Mexico, we talked about this earlier, Old Country, what's that?
Old Country, No Country for Old Men.
Right. There were scenes that were ostensibly in Mexico, but was actually...
Right, the border scenes, right,
yeah.
crossing the border. That was all done in Las Vegas, yeah. Las Vegas goes way back to the Tom Mix Westerns that were made a long time ago. The very first film made in New Mexico was by the Edison Corporation in 1898, and it was filmed at Isleta, Pueblo.
Is that right?
And it was called Indian School Days, and it's just 50 seconds long, and it's little kids going in and out of a building.
Wow.
So we do have a long history of film in New Mexico.
I had a previous guest who was the founder of the Rancho de Chimayo restaurant. It's an iconic restaurant in Chimayo. And long story short, Easy Rider was filmed in Taos. And so that became a kind of a hangout for a lot of movie stars. He went through a long list of A-list movie stars. But he also mentioned that his parents, or grandparents actually, were in a documentary film in the 40s that the U.S. Army made about Hispanics in the United States because they wanted to air it in South America because the Germans were making inroads into South America and Mexico, and they wanted those people to know through the documentary that there were Spanish-speaking people in the United States. It ended up winning an Academy Award, I believe,
Oh, terrific.
of some sort. It's a documentary film.
Right,
So,
right. Oh, that's wonderful. There's a young Hispanic filmmaker in Albuquerque. His name is Alejandro Montoya, and Robert Rodriguez, whose first film was Machete, wanted to get some filmmakers and give them $7,000 each, like he started with Machete. That's how much he spent on Machete, his first film. So they did a nationwide search, and Alejandro was one of 5 people that was selected around the country to participate in this project. They were each of these filmmakers given $7,000 to make a feature film.
wow.
So they did that, and then they did a kind of behind-the-scenes reality TV kind of thing while they're going through this process of making the films. So there's in New Mexico, and film is statewide. It's not just Albuquerque, Santa Fe.
Right.
A lot of Hispanic filmmakers in New Mexico.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Right. I
And
saw one of the stats that we looked at. Santa Fe has like 37%, or a big chunk of the film market.
yeah, and you know, it's always been Albuquerque and Santa Fe because of the infrastructure and the airports and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
With this new bill that came out of the legislative session, they added an extra 5% incentive if you're filming outside the Albuquerque Santa Fe area. So now Farmington comes into play, and they're talking about building a studio. Las Cruces has a new studio, and they're thinking about building another one. Hobbs and Lovington and Las Vegas. So you know, there's more incentive to film outside of the Albuquerque Santa Fe area.
Right, right. So this interview went very quickly. I told you all the good ones, good ones do. So we got about a minute and a half left.
Sure.
What about the New Mexico Film Foundation do you want people to know?
Yeah, we're a nonprofit, so any donations are tax deductible.
Okay.
And our website is nmfilmfoundation.org.
Okay. And you do work. You said you do workshops and
Yeah, we do
educational.
workshops.
So anybody who's interested in making film or learning more about it can contact you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and if you're a screenwriter, we support screenwriters, and we do stage readings of scripts. We do the business of film workshops. We do all kinds of workshops to help the filmmaker kind of increase their abilities and their profession.
Do you have any partnerships or work with like colleges, universities, community colleges?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, right now we're running a student filmmaker showcase. This is student films from all the universities in the state. We have 9 universities participating, and each university submits 3 student films and then judged, and then we have a screening of the best of, and that'll be in September or October, and get some good prizes for all the winners.
Great, great. All right, well, Dirk, I wish we had more time to talk,
It's been nice.
You know, anybody who wants to learn more, just go to the New Mexico Film Foundation.org.
.org, right?
.org, and if somebody has a project and they want to utilize a fiscal agent, they can contact you as well. So
Absolutely.
right. Well, it's a fascinating industry, and I'm getting more involved in it, of course. And
Great to have you.
yeah, so thank you. You've been a great support for me, and so I wanted to thank our audience for joining us on this edition of Business Success Talk.